what do we know what's going on in Moscow, Idaho right now? Well, we know the trial's not going to be till next year or possibly the year after. The way things are going, and the hearing last week, you had Bill Thompson standing up and throwing a fit like a petulant child that throws a tantrum over a jury survey that he didn't approve of. And you have the judge in the case, Judge John Judge, in a prior hearing, throwing a fit because he doesn't want to travel to a different county for the trial, and neither does the prosecutor. And in my opinion, that's all stupid. You had a woman call the sheriff's department because her son got a jury survey and she didn't like the questions on the jury survey. So she decided to call the sheriff's department. Apparently, there's a lot of law abiding citizens there in Moscow, Idaho. But where was that due diligence the day of the murders? There wasn't none. No one in that house called the cops right after the murders. It was an 8-hour gap in between the murders and the time the 911 was called. And it wasn't even the surviving roommates who had called the cops. It was a friend of, I believe it was Ethan Hunter Johnson. Now, mind you, the surviving roommates, they could call their friends over after they discovered the deceased bodies, but they couldn't call the cops. It just makes you think exactly what's going on in Moscow, Idaho. Well, there's always the what if situation. Well, what if the reason why the cops were called was Dylan fainted? Or what if this or what if that? There would be a lot of blood in that house. You would wake up to the stench of death after 8 hours. And why little Miss Dillon, she must have had an angel on her side that night because the killer walked right by her. And it just is kind of a coincidence that she opened up her door 3 separate times that night. The first time she opened it up, and there's been reports that she yelled out, "Shut the F up, I'm trying to sleep." Well, that would automatically alert the killer to her. Second time she opened up her door, she heard the sounds of Xana crying and a male voice going, "It's okay, I'm going to help you." See, normally the only type of people who say, "It's okay, I'm going to help you," is the police and EMTs. And then she shuts her door, and it's shut a while, and miraculously she opens up the door a third time and she sees the killer walking towards the back door. But all she could describe on the killer was 5'10" or taller, bushy eyebrows. He was clad in black, had a face mask, and that was her only description. Oh, and he was athletically built, not muscular. And then she closes her door from frozen shock phase, locks it, and then the 911 call is not made for 8 hours later. Don't you guys think that's kind of odd? I think it's kind of odd. And then they were interviewed, or I believe they were interrogated, because some say they were interviewed by Moscow police, ISP, and the FBI. Why, after these interviews, did they both lawyer up? Like instantaneously, right after the interviews, they lawyered up. And you have Miss Funk living off the grid in Reno, Nevada. And she was subpoenaed by Brian's defense team and Miss Ann Taylor. Her lawyer tried to get the subpoena quashed, and his statement was, and I quote, "Miss Funk no longer lives in Idaho. She wants nothing to do with this case or nothing to do with this house, or that house." I believe she did volunteer to be interviewed by the defense team, but it had to be in Reno, Nevada, and I do not know if that interview actually took place. And then you had Miss Dylan Mortensen, who is a social recluse, according to her father. She lives in Boise now. She smokes weed and plays video games all day. And she has tremendous survivor's guilt. And she is seeking spiritual healing from her spiritual community, which I find to be a load of horse manure. You have the tattoos that it was either Dylan and her best friend or Dylan and Bethany got, and there was only a 26% chance to get the order of the victim's right, MKXE, and they got those like a week to 2 weeks after the murders, and nobody knew exactly the order of the murders until the indictment, and the indictment was sealed until the suspect was in custody and extradited back from Pennsylvania. It's just so odd, because indictment 1 was the felony burglary. Indictment 2 was murder in the first degree of Madison Mogan. Indictment 3 was murder in the first degree Kayla Gonzalez. 4 was murder in the first degree of Xander Kernodle. 5 was murder in the first degree of Ethan Chapin, MKXE. So how would they know to get those initials right if the order wasn't put out until after Brian was back in Idaho, which was roughly, I believe, January 2023, and they got the tattoos about a week to 2 weeks after the murders. So that just don't add up, guys. It really don't. And Brian, who was studying to be uh, a criminologist in Pullman, Washington, he was going for his PhD in cloud forensics. How do we know that he's not sitting in the chair that he's sitting in? Because he could have came across a dirty little secret at the Pullman Police Department. And the Pullman Police Department didn't want him finding out their dirty little secret. And being an intuitive guy that he is, he asked questions. So, for all we know, that could be the reason why he's being framed for this murder. It's because he started asking questions. And we all know that there's a tie to the house from Emma Bailey, whether it be drugs or just knowing them as friends. It just makes you wonder, could Emma have been feeding information to somebody about when the girls got home? It just, in my opinion, this whole case is just whack. There's a whole bunch of timelines spinning all at once. So, like always, like, comment, and subscribe to my channel. Hit the bell notification for any new uploads. And let me know down in the comments about the topics I just touched on. You guys have a good night. Peace.